Mhm.
It's showing as live on my end.
It is live now.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
just tuning in, welcome. You are listening to United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or just plain old UPRN. We're broadcasting you out in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana, out of 105.3 and 107.7. We are also broadcast to you all over wherever podcasts or talk radio is carried, as well as you can watch us on various YouTube platforms and Facebook, which I will cover in a second. So welcome. You're listening to the Angel Rock. Hello, Erica. Wait till I do my intro, and then I'll give you your special nickname you've called out, so I always remember you. Anyways, I am Lorilei Potvin, the host of the Angel Rock. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and registered nurse. And if you've never been to the Angel Rock, you are welcome, and returning guests, welcome. And you're going to think I'm terrible, Kira. I'm going to introduce my wonderful guest in a minute. This woman has self-named herself Erica. I will never forget her. She calls herself the Crystal Whore. I'll explain why in a minute.
I love
That's what
that.
she's laughing. She's going, LOL. Anyways, where was I here? I'm losing my train of thought. So I cover all aspects, I say, of the esoteric, some spirituality, power of the mind, power of positivity, with a little bit of truth seeking thrown in. Many of you that have been to both of my shows, I have one on Thursday night, which is the thing at the foot of the bed, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I co-host with David Hansel. You know, I'm also well-versed in the paranormal too, but I love to talk about the topics we're going to talk about tonight. And I will let you know all the guests I have on my show, whatever they're doing professionally or extracurricularly, they are making a positive change for humanity. And our guest is no different. Let me read you her distinguished bio, and then we're going to have a great conversation. Kira M. Markoff, she is a licensed clinical social worker and is an outpatient mental health therapist at the Mental Health Center of Western Maryland and psychology PhD student at Grand Canyon University. Kira has undergraduate degrees in psychology and social work from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and a master's degree in social work from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Since 2017, she has provided mental health therapy to individuals and families, specializing with veterans and those with co-occurring substance use disorders. My mouth does not want to work tonight. As a yoga instructor and longtime meditator, Kira believes in using a mind, body, spirit approach when working with clients. Kira developed a belief in the reciprocity. I can't even talk tonight. Reciprocity. Sorry, my mouth is not working. Of personal, interpersonal well-being through yoga practice, clinical experience, and academic research. Her passion for cultivating meaningful connections led her to study mindfulness and romantic partner conflict, which is the focus of her doctoral dissertation. Kira believes that understanding is the key to discovering a solution and hopes to use her expertise to help people foster deeper connections with each other and themselves. And she's also an author. And we are going to be talking about her wonderful book. It's called Mindfulness. I think it's called Mindfulness. I'll let you introduce it. Hi, Kira. I'm trying to get it to open and it won't open, and I don't want to screw it up.
That's okay.
Welcome, Kira. How are you?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and I'm sorry to make you struggle so.
My mouth does not want to work tonight. I don't know why. Please let them know the wonderful name of your book, because I'm a big proponent of what we're going to talk about tonight. Listen, they're going, Kira, I need you. We got Robin here from I was just on his podcast yesterday. He's over in the UK, and Erica says, wow, Kira, I need you. So please tell them the name of your book.
Sure. So my book is called Mindfulness and Me, A Practical Guide for Living, and it just released last week. So it is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what the book is, it's 8 weeks with daily mindfulness practices, and each practice can be done in 3 to 5 minutes. So it's really bite-sized chunks of mindfulness to...
Can we tell people, though, because I should have told you this before we went live,
Yeah.
we reach every country around the world. There's going to be people listening and going, what is mindfulness? Because sometimes people are just dialing around wherever. I should remind people too, I said I was going to say this. If you want to join in the conversation like Robin and Erica, you can head over to facebook.com/, I think it's UPRN or UFO Paranormal Radio. You can just look that up too. Or you can head over to a YouTube channel. It is UFO Paranormal Radio as well. I believe I can see comments. I'm streaming to my YouTube channel, which is the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. And Kira, do you want to tell them too where they can join the conversation from your pages?
Sure. So my webpage or my brand's name is Connections Mind Body Wellness. So you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook under that name, Connections Mind Body Wellness. And I also have a website. It's www.connectionsmindbody.com. And Lorilei put that in the description. So that's there.
But you're streaming to your people, aren't you? Just so we know, I'm going to stream this
Yeah.
across the bottom. So if you're on Facebook and you're just listening, please head to StreamYard.com/Facebook. You're just going to say yes to them using your picture and name. Otherwise, you come up as Facebook user and we have no idea who you are.
Oh, me? Hold on.
No, but what? No, you're okay. But
Oh,
say
I
you
was
have
like,
one
oh
of your
dear.
no, say you have one of your people watching and they want to comment. You'll see. There'll be somebody here. It'll come up. Facebook user will be. We have no idea who you are.
Oh, well, we will wait for that to happen.
Yes. So please tell people. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. I was running 24/7. Now I get settled into host mode. So mindfulness. What are we talking about with mindfulness?
Sure. So there's a couple different definitions, and I think that's part of why people get so confused is that, a lot of different people are using this word mindfulness and they're using it in different ways. And it's just sometimes not very clear what that's actually referring to, etc. So the definition that I really like comes from John Kabat-Zinn. And essentially it's paying attention in a particular way on purpose, in the present moment, right? Watching the moments kind of unfold moment by moment in a non-judgmental and accepting way in the service of compassion and wisdom.
Okay. So that sounds like if somebody was listening to that, right, they think, oh boy, that's a lot to remember.
Yeah, it feels like that.
And why would someone, I know, but why would someone want to practice mindfulness? And if you wanted to just tell them really quickly in a nutshell, because that described it beautifully, but for someone who's never heard this term before,
yeah,
everybody could use to be practicing mindfulness, could they not?
So I've kind of simplified this, if we want to put it in a nutshell, as putting your mind and your body in the same place, which is right now, in a way that's kind and accepting.
I love it. I love it. But why would someone want to do that?
So there's a lot of reasons. And I can pull up, I have this much research that says all of the benefits that it does for you. But really what it does is it makes you available to live, and it makes you available to life, because life happens in this present moment. And so if you're somewhere else, you're in the future planning, worrying, thinking about what might be, or you're in the past thinking about what has happened, or how you could have done things differently or should have said something differently, you're missing out on what's right now. And right now is your life.
I love that. Plus, on top of it, what people don't realize, even going into the clinical research, is it's older research, it's been around for a long time. But when people are living, say, in a really traumatic experience, for example, our bodies don't know the difference between back then and now, right? Like, even though we may not be physically experiencing it, our body with the memory still releases a lot of the chemicals and what have you, right?
Yeah, so I talk about that a lot with my clients because I actually specialize in trauma treatment. I'm a certified trauma professional. So the way that I've kind of explained that is, like, when people talk about being triggered, I prefer the word activated, but it doesn't really matter. What happens is your body is kind of pulling you into a past experience, right? And so it's not just about what's going on now. It's about all of the histories of times that you've felt a similar way. And for people who have been through a trauma, that was a traumatic experience. And so your body is putting you back into that state of being in an actively dangerous situation.
I like I said, when and I'm going to give Gavin Lee Davies a shout out. We were talking about him before. Gavin, if your ears were burning, he's amazing, and he sends me these incredible authors like yourself, and I'm so grateful. And when he had sent me the write-up about your book and what he does, I went, oh my gosh, this is like right up my alley, because I'm a big believer with working with energy healing and things like that. Even coming from a big pharma background, I always look at more natural and things, because the mind is so powerful, and I don't think we've ever been taught to appreciate that.
Right.
And I usually use the example because most people know what the pill or placebo is. And
Mhm.
it's been shown time and time again, if somebody really believes that this is going to work and it's going to cure them, and then they find out, they get unblinded at the end of a study, for
Right.
example, and find out that all they were getting was a sugar pill. What cured them? The sugar pill didn't cure them. Their minds did. And it's the same thing with our thoughts and what have you, right? Hi,
Mhm.
Howie. Hi, Mark. Welcome. I'm just shouting them out. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's even research kind of on the clinical side of that the intervention or the thing that's most helpful for clients is whatever they believe is going to be the most helpful for them.
Hmm. Hmm. Or even where I've been looking into, I've been off a long time with a back injury and can't return to nursing, and I miss it, but I love what I'm doing now. So we've kind of evolved into maybe what I was supposed to be doing in the first place. Who knows?
You were
But
forced to
what's
transition.
that?
I said you were forced to transition.
Well, I don't know if you're forced, right? I always believe
Maybe
that we have
guided.
well, we have a choice, right? Like, and we've all seen people like this, and I don't say it with judgment in any way, shape, or form. But some people, their story of their trauma becomes who they are. And I
Mhm.
don't want to use the word victimhood because I really believe that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen for somebody to choose to want to kind of move out of that story, right? Because your life is what you make it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And that
Hmm.
empowerment piece is a huge part of trauma healing, right?
Hmm.
Having this belief that I can make choices, I can make a change or, be more, be different, whatever, versus I'm stuck in the story that's being written for me.
Hmm. Right. And I think that that's mindset, right? Believing that and it's so cliche, but it's true. You are the master of your own destiny. And I always say to people, I never used to be a firm believer in affirmations, but again, I always like sometimes, especially like I mentioned with the paranormal and stuff, I don't eat, breathe, and sleep it. It kind of found us. We didn't look for it. But
Mhm.
there's got to be some sort of scientific basis for me to kind of have a starting point. And like I say, when you look at people and you see what they've been through and what people have done and chosen to do,
Mhm.
say with what they've gone through, some incredible things have happened because of that choice, right? And whether they're guided to or the experiences led them to that.
Mhm.
But where I'm going with this is what you said, I think is a really important word, now. The word now. And that's what I always say, like the word now is already in the past, right? All we really have is that moment, right?
Mhm.
Hmm. So I think it's so important to make your response, somebody said, Mark says, is your responsibility as well. So let's get back to your book. And we kind of started all over with everybody jumping in. So you said you have 8 weeks. So how would somebody use your book and why would they want to use this book?
So actually, the conversation that we were just having fits perfectly into a discussion
Okay.
of mindfulness and me because I see mindfulness and I've brought out parts of mindfulness so that it's not just a relaxation practice. It's not just a
Hmm.
stress management practice. Although those benefits are very real, mindfulness is an empowerment practice because it's a way to get your mind and your body into the here and now so that you can make those choices, so that you're
Okay.
not just kind of driven around by your habitual patterns, your trauma responses, etc. So, like I said, it's 8 weeks of daily practices. And so each week has a different category.
Hmm.
So week one starts with presence. And so it's practices that use the senses. So we do a little bit of a practice with sight, with sound, with taste, and so on. So it's just about kind of befriending the senses and noticing kind of the experience that we're having moment to moment. So that's kind of
Okay.
the first introduction into the practice. And the reason you said, why would people even want to do this, is because people, you may relate, people often feel stressed. We feel like we're battling with our mind. We feel like our mind is not our friend. We feel like we maybe are powerless to make
I
choices.
have a stubborn mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Erica said, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we might have a stubborn mind. I sometimes hear people refer to it as the monkey mind, right? A mind
I
that just,
hate that term. I'm sorry. I know what you mean, but I wish there was a better word. I get where people are coming from with it, though.
what is it that you hate about it? Now I'm curious.
Um, I don't know. I love animals. There's nothing wrong with
You
it.
feel like it demonizes monkeys?
Not even so much that. I just think it demonizes our intelligence in a way, if you
Mm,
will, because not that I don't think monkeys aren't intelligent. They are, but I think monkeys are monkeys and humans are humans. I understand the analogy. I don't know. It's just always kind of, maybe I need to really look into that, but it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Not because
yeah.
you said it. I'm glad that you did, but I hear it a lot in my field as well, the monkey
Yeah.
mind. I
Yeah.
always call it the mind that we're thinking with versus like our higher self or the subconscious or what have you. It's just
Yeah.
a preference, that's all. Mhm.
Hmm. I
But
like
I
that.
get where you're going. Sorry, that came right out too. I wasn't even thinking of saying it. I went, oh,
No, no, no. Now I'm thinking like, what could I use to kind of better
you
characterize?
don't
And
have
I
to.
think
You
about
can
it,
keep using it. But
I
it's
think
just,
about it
I've
kind of
always
just,
never understood in the beginning, like, why a monkey? And then as I thought more and more about it, I don't know. But go ahead. You're
yeah.
getting off on
So
a
like
tangent
a
here.
mind that wanders or like kind of a mind that does whatever it wants in a way that's not helpful or desirable. Like that's kind of the idea behind it. But
Mhm.
essentially, no, I've lost my train of thought because we got off on the monkey mind thing.
I'm
But
sorry. So you were talking about the monkey mind. You went through the first week and why people would want to use this. See, I'm going to have you all over because I don't practice this. I always say, if you really want to know, I believe in connecting with, I call collectively spirit. And I always go before a show, okay, where are we going with this? And we're wherever the conversation leads us.
yeah. No, it's so funny. I was actually teaching some like meditation and mindfulness classes through Facebook for a while, and somebody asked me like, "Okay, I get what to do, but like I don't understand why I would be doing it."
Hmm.
And believe it or not, it was my own mother who asked me that. I was like, "Mom, how could you?" But the idea is that it's both delicious and nutritious, right? I use this
Okay.
example of like apple slices with peanut butter. Like it's
Ooh.
delicious. It's such a tasty snack and it's also really good for you. And I think about a mindfulness practice that same way. It's like if you're having a really stressful day, how wonderful to just kind of let yourself sit and notice the clouds or sit and like be with your breath in and out and just kind of let the day be the day and kind of give yourself a reset so that you can still enjoy the parts of your life that are there to be enjoyed. Like it just makes it more pleasant, you know? And people think about these things as like, oh, it's a waste of time, or like I need to be productive, or I need to be, problem solving. And it's like, well, if you spend 100% of your time thinking about problems, you're leaving 0% of your time to think of solutions.
Makes sense.
And so, I mean, if you think about your own life, and not just you, but all of the listeners, think about the most creative and insightful and innovative ideas that you've had.
All the time.
Have they been times when you were really kind of forcing yourself and pressuring yourself into thinking of a solution? Or did they just drop in? And I'm genuinely curious.
Oh, for me? So I'm a big proponent of meditation and mindfulness and catching our thoughts that go by throughout the day. I teach
Mhm.
it a little differently than you do. Um, and that's why I'm so excited to hear, because I think we can always learn from one another. And I'm loving what you're saying already. And so when I'm working with people with mindfulness, I always, sometimes it's a good thing. I teach them maybe to set a timer throughout the day. And we're not dealing with people with trauma here, for example. Maybe we're trying to, I believe that our thoughts, our words, and our emotions are the most powerful forms of energy
Mhm.
and can create some of the issues we don't want to bring to ourselves, say if we
Right.
perseverate on it. So if somebody's maybe wanting to change their own way of thinking, and I will answer your question, but say they want to change their own way of thinking, they're not liking the way their life is going, and we're working together, and we can be the worst critic, be the worst person to our own selves than we can be to anybody else. We may
Yep.
think those thoughts about somebody else, but we would never say to most people, most human beings, what we say to ourselves when we mess up or whatever that is. So a lot of times, especially when we're deep in thought with work and what have you, right? We don't realize the thoughts that are going through our mind. So sometimes I may suggest, if it'll work for somebody, maybe set a timer throughout the day. Don't focus on the timer, go about your day. And then just as a little reminder, if you hear that little blip, just just jot down what you were thinking about and don't beat yourself up about it. Nothing like that, but you're going to just look at that and how could I maybe reword that? Like if saying, I suck, I'm so stupid, I always make mistakes, nobody likes me, whatever that may be, right? And just stop and rewording that, reprogramming, if you will. Sorry, you asked me a question and I got off track there. You were asking me about creativity and what goes through my mind.
Yeah, like well, the question is like, when do your most creative and insightful
Perfect.
ideas
Okay.
happen? When you're trying to force one or just happening naturally?
Okay, so it happens naturally, but I'm a really creative person, and I'm a real believer in that we don't need to sit on top of a mountain that we see with meditation in the Buddhist position for an
Yeah.
hour or two. Sometimes quality is better than quantity. So for me, I'm a real night person. You can see me squirming. I always forget to mention I do have a bad back, so I have to squirm. I don't even notice, but I do. So I don't sleep a lot. So when I'm awake at night and I'm working on creating resin piece, like this is a piece, I wasn't promoting this, just happens to be here, a little journal. Oh, it's upside down. Little journal I made, say with resin and stuff. So I'm always doing that. But while I'm doing it, I'm either learning or I'm in silence and I am either meditating or trying to quiet the mind, if you will, while the hands are busy. And it's kind of distracting for the monkey mind, if you will. And then the clarity starts to come through. And I will tell you, when I get really busy, I crave meditation. I crave that quiet space. I don't even realize that I've created it and carved it out until it's not there. Because
Right.
that's where the answers come,
Yeah.
not when I force them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of what a consistent mindfulness or meditation practice can do for you is it creates the availability for these kinds of good ideas and thoughts and solutions to drop
Mhm,
in.
mhm. I agree with you because I don't think we realize, well, I guess we do as a society, but I don't think we really realize that we really don't allow ourselves a lot of quiet solitude. We don't,
Yeah.
because, with the busy schedules we have and what we're doing and extracurricular things and what have you, and then people are stressed. And then
Mhm.
when you've got a problem, I find the harder you try to force it, the worse it's going to get.
Mhm.
Rather than, even if you can just leave it, sometimes I'll even suggest to people, if you can't you've got these running thoughts and it's over and over and over, and you keep thinking about what you got to do, just put it on paper. Think of it as like putting it into a bag or a wallet or purse, whatever. It's in there. You're not going to forget about it. It's there. You can take care of it when you need to. Sort of teaching people to, because that's what I hear from people all the time. I'm sure you do too, is I can't meditate. I hate meditating. I can't, I just can't get it. I just can't clear my mind. Instead of giving ourselves grace and the space, but how about just giving yourself permission that it's okay? It's
Right.
okay. Mhm.
And y there are different types of meditation, and having a
That's what I
clear
say.
mind is only one kind,
I
right? So
know.
this
Yeah.
idea that in order to meditate, you have to be able to clear your mind is a complete false
I
misperception,
agree.
and I don't know who keeps perpetrating it, but stop.
We do, because that's what people think. I used to think that, or
I
I don't have
know.
time to meditate. And that's why I always use that analogy of you don't have to be sitting in the lotus position with your hands in the meditation
Ex
pose. You know where I got this from? It's kind of funny. I used to work with a larger group on Facebook that shall remain nameless, I say, from years ago. A lot of good things came out of, like, my friend David, my co-host and such. But anyways, I was in one I used we've worked with a lot of different mentors and what have you. And there was one, and she had a call-in show, actually live. And I didn't call in, but I think I typed in the chat about meditation or something. This is years ago when I was learning all this stuff. And she kept saying she was a psychic and medium, and she was turning over and she's going, "No, I'm not saying that. No, no." And it looked like she's not talking to anybody, but she was talking to her guides. And finally she goes, "Fine." She goes, "I'm really embarrassed saying this, but apparently you're gonna be okay with this, Lorilei." She goes, "Okay, so you say you have no time to meditate. Everybody has to go to the bathroom every day. Do you not at least have 5 minutes?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, that's the whole point." And that's where I kind of realized that, yeah, you don't need to sit in silence, or there are different types. You can listen to guided meditations. There's megahertz types of different, healing modalities. There's binaural beats. There's soma. I mean, you could go on and on.
Right.
And the reason why I bring up meditation, because I think the two of them kind of go hand in hand, don't you? Mindfulness and meditation.
They do, and often I will find myself even kind of using them interchangeably just
Yeah.
because there is a difference, and in Mindfulness in Me, I talk about the difference a little bit.
Okay.
So, do we wanna read that comment, or do you want me to keep going?
I just put it. Do you want to maybe talk about the difference, or it's up to you, or do you think we should address it right now, or?
If you would like to, you're welcome to.
Okay.
I can always come back
Okay.
to my point in a minute.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is from Mark, and I always read the comments out because some people are listening. So when it comes to trauma and anguish or agony and despair, I just think to myself, give your scars to the stars. That's interesting. What that means to me is the universe is infinite with endless stars. Every star is a point of light. I give my most terrible and the most hurt to each one of those points of light with the concept that it will take billions and trillions of light years to return, way after I'm on the astral or spiritual plane. I kind of like that because
It
that's how he's coping with that, right?
Yeah, it's about connecting with something that's bigger than you. I mean, they say that trauma is a disease of disconnection, and so it's really flipping the script and saying, when I experience that disconnection, I have a place of endless connection to go to and seek comfort.
I like that. So when you were saying that you use mindfulness and meditation interchangeably, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So essentially, the difference is when you get into really the definitions of the two,
Okay.
meditation is a specific time that you've set aside to be in a safe space, be quiet. It might be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, however long, but it's your time
Mhm.
away. And then mindfulness is really kind of where the rubber meets the road. So it may come with a meditation practice, but it absolutely doesn't have to. And I'm in the moment, I'm living, I'm, walking and I'm only paying attention to where I'm walking, or I'm washing my hands and I'm paying attention to the sensations of the water and the soap and the way that I'm moving. Or I'm on the toilet and I'm only paying attention to what's going on with my body in this moment. I mean, Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, I'm urinating and I'm enjoying the feeling of urinating. And for him, that's a mindful moment. We all go to the bathroom every day. And if we can use that as a time to enjoy being with our body, who's to say
Okay.
that's wrong?
Okay, so I'm loving what you're saying. So somebody hearing this, never heard mindfulness before is going, okay, so why do I need to do this? Like, how does this help? How could somebody say, I could definitely see that helping with trauma, but everyday life, we've all had some sort of trauma in any way, shape, or form. But somebody hearing this is going, okay, so how do I use this? Like, why would I want to use this?
So, on one hand, it's just about enjoying your life and being present and available for your life, right? And so if you're able to find, let's say you're a person who's experienced trauma, and like you said, most, if not all people have in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or
Some
form,
type
right?
of trauma. Yeah.
So we're befriending our body, we're befriending our experience, we're befriending our life, right? So, like I said, trauma is a disease of disconnection. And so, through mindfulness, we are reconnecting with ourselves in a way that's kind and compassionate, non judgmental. So that's kind of just one side of it, is that it recreates some pleasure and enjoyment in your life in these different ways, with yourself, with nature, with other people. The other part is that when we are present, we get more choices, right? Because if I'm just living on autopilot, I don't really get the choice of what's going on, how to respond, how to react. But if I'm able to be present and in the moment and be able to think clearly, then I get so many more choices about how to react, what to say, what not to say, what to do, and we can start to kind of challenge and rewire. I talk about like brain and nervous system functioning.
Mhm.
We start to be able to rewire some of those reactions, responses, and just kind of patterns that we have.
I hear you. And I want to thank Mark for sharing this. My heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry for your loss. He says, I lost both of my kids in a year's time. That saying helped you grieve. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Mark, because I can't even imagine. My heart goes out to you.
Wow.
Hmm. George says hello. Erica said, hey, Michelle Pratt from Australia. We got people from all over the world watching here tonight. So Erica says, when I get really mad, I say to myself, see truth, see truth, see truth. So, and the reason why I'm appreciating, I'm highlighting your comments is because there may be somebody out there that may be able to resonate with what you're sharing as an experience when they're listening. And again, it may not work for everybody, but if somebody's able to utilize what you're sharing in the comments as well as what you're sharing too, Kira, I think it's so important because so it wouldn't just be some, well, I can't really say this because I hear where you're coming from with trauma, but really, I don't know anybody that hasn't had some kind of trauma. Because what really intrigued me about yourself, I love that you work with veterans and then with the substance abuse issues, because I've been around that my whole life, professionally as well as personally. And I don't know why I've understood it this way, but I always say to people, nobody wakes up one day and says, I think I'm going to be an alcoholic or a drug
Right.
addict. Like I'm
Right.
planning on that. And what other people always want to judge, and I always say it's not my job or anybody else's job to judge, because what's traumatic to one person may
Mhm.
not necessarily be to somebody else, but it's their trauma, the person that's experiencing it, right?
And I love that academic research is catching up with that, because at one point, not in our very distant past, it was, only combat veterans can have trauma. And then it was only people who had a near death experience can have trauma. And now, we're really kind of pushing back and seeing like, no, it's not about the actual event. It doesn't have to be objectively traumatic for every person. It's the way that it's experienced and the way that it impacts an individual.
And that's so important. And you're so right about that, because that's where, again, some of the things I will be teaching. And of course, I don't have all the professional degrees you have behind you. And I really respect that. And I just love what you've shared with what you're doing with the work that you're doing. But I think it's important for people to hear that, because you do find, especially in this day in Advent, again, not in judgment, just noticing, some people will share everything about their life out there. Maybe that is they need to vent. That's their support system. And then you get other people that feel like they got to chime in rather than just sort of leaving it. Maybe it
Right.
resonates, maybe it doesn't, right? Everybody uses different things to cope. So I love that you've created this book. So we were with week one, you were talking about noticing the sensations, and that's so
Mhm.
important because I don't think we realize, we take it for granted, our senses, I think, right? And so it's nice that you've started that way. I love it. So week two.
Week 2 goes into some of the traditional breathing practices, and I drew almost exclusively from my yoga background. So when you do a yoga practice, typically they do a breath practice in there as well. So
Mhm.
over time, I picked up several varieties, and I like breathing practices. And I put it as week 2 for a couple of reasons. One, most people are familiar with breathing practices now. Like
Yeah.
there's, pretty much everywhere you see people like, oh, breathing practices, they help you feel calm, blah, blah, blah. But I hear so many times people are saying, I hate breathing practices, they make me feel worse.
Oh, really?
Oh, you've never experienced that?
Well, I have a son with severe autism, and so both my boys have had anxiety. They're both adults, but the youngest especially, and he doesn't like to do it. If he calls it a number five. We have that 5-point rating scale that's out there by one of the people with autism, and it can work for anybody. You don't have to be autistic. So when he's at a 5, right, he's barely reachable. So you got to kind of make him think it's this idea to get him to do some of the breathing with you. So
Yeah.
I haven't heard that though, that people say it makes them feel worse. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So especially I've come across that with box breathing. And that's the practice where you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4,
I don't like
hold.
it.
Exactly. A lot of people really don't like it. They say
It
that it
doesn't
makes.
make me feel worse. It just, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Um, I've I've had feelings of being choked as an 8-year-old, waking up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to breathe. And I tend to feel a little panicky towards the end of it. I do. So sorry, I cut
Yeah.
you off. So I'm gonna be honest here. I do. It doesn't make me
Yeah.
feel worse, just panicky. And then you got to keep focusing on counting, and it's a lot of work to me.
Yeah, but if you're a person with anxiety and you're kind of on the verge of a panic attack and somebody is saying, "Oh, let's do box breath," like
That would work. Yes.
like
Okay. Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like that's probably a lot of people say it increases their anxiety and I include box breath, but I specifically include it with kind of the caution or the caveat that like this is how it's traditionally taught. Now make it your own and something that feels good in your body. And I think that's really the key with all of the breathing practices is that it's an invitation to kind of try it out, try it on, see if it works for you and make changes. And that's another kind of beautiful layer of mindfulness is that you get to kind of explore and be curious and say like, hey, do I like this? Do I not like this? How is this making me feel? You know, is this something that I want to kind of keep in my back pocket to use later? And that's why I wanted to include so many different practices because you get to try each on and see how they feel. So for box breath, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go
No,
ahead.
you didn't. All I was going to say is I love that you said, you know, try it on, see how it feels. So you're building a toolbox, if you will. But the other
Mhm.
thing I liked is she said it almost sounded like you could adapt it a little bit if you needed to, if it was still going to work for you. That's what I like too.
So my favorite thing to say to people is there are no rules in mindfulness. The only rule is that you keep breathing and really that's just a safety recommendation.
I think so.
Like that's like, because we kind
That's why I started to
of
laugh when you said breathing and you said everybody knows about deep breathing, but I was laughing. I thought, yeah, we all breathe. We all breathe.
exactly. And it's something you
Yeah.
do all the time. It's with you no matter where you go, right?
But
And
we
the
don't think
reason
about it.
exactly. And we don't have to because our mind is so intuitive that
Mhm.
our brain is literally monitoring everything that's going on inside of our body and makes little minute changes so that our body can stay functional. Right? Bodies are so cool and they're so intuitive. And so, even if you don't change your breath at all, even if you just become an observer for your natural breath, that's a beautiful practice. And I would say, just if not more beneficial than trying to force your breath to be any particular way.
I love it. Like you said, just paying attention to it. And I've even found, you know what, I got to go back to this. I'm hearing there's somebody out there thinking this too, is that I love that you said, who put that out there that we have to clear our mind when we go into meditation? Because I thought that too in the beginning years ago. Like, what did that come from a specific practice through your research or what your thoughts were? Hi, Zed Sun Dragon. First time they caught alive. Hi. They said, hi, y'all. So I'll highlight you. We got some good comments too. I'll go back to in a minute. Do you
Oh,
know
I
where
know.
that came from?
So it is a specific type of meditation
Right.
practice. That is one kind. The other kind, and really that practice is more for, I would say, advanced
Yeah.
Zen Buddhist practitioners trying to reach enlightenment. You know, like that's not kind of a
Mhm.
starter, beginner, or even intermediate practice. And I think you can get just as many benefits from a different practice where you have an anchor.
I'm so glad you said this. Okay, so anchor for people
Yeah.
listening, because I think it's so important. It's a gift to ourselves, is what I keep hearing. Like you said, that time. Think of it as your gift to yourself, just like maybe you
Mhm.
get up and have your morning cup of coffee. You know, even that's a real gift to yourself. If you
Yeah.
got 5 minutes to make yourself a cup of coffee and drink it, if you can savor it, even better. But like we don't look at these things, but I think it's so important. I think it's one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves.
Yeah, and it's
Mindfulness.
not about doing anything different. It's just about doing what you already do in a different
Mhm,
way so that it feels like a gift to yourself.
mhm. So Mark says, "Oh boy, the anchor. I love it."
Yeah, so an anchor is really anything that you are intending to pay attention to, using as the focus of your meditation, and it's the thing that you come back to after you get distracted. I really like Pema Chodron, a Buddhist monk out of Canada, says that meditation is a practice of failing, right? Because
Oh, I like that.
if you're trying
Oh.
to focus on one thing, you're always going to fail. You're going to get distracted and distracted and distracted.
And
And
then
so
people give up because they go, "I can't do it." That's what I always hear. "I hate it. I can't do it. I
because
don't
we're
wanna do."
averse to failure.
Mhm. No, I hear you. And I like I said, that's why I keep hearing in my head, like there's people out here that are gonna want or whether they're able to put the questions or comments here or they hear it on the replay, because I think there's a lot of people that have read and known enough about the benefits of meditation. They
Mhm.
give it a try and they get so turned off because they believe that that's what they need to do. And like you said,
Yeah.
I agree. It's for the intermediate to even advanced meditator to be trying to sit in absolute silence.
Yeah. No, I would never ever recommend to a beginner to try to
Mhm.
clear your mind ever.
I
Like,
love it. Go ahead.
And even for most beginners, my recommendation is to start with some kind of movement practice to help transition yourself into stillness and silence. Because if you just take yourself out of a busy, chaotic day and your brain and your body aren't used to being able to sit in stillness, it's going to fight, right? And so either you're going to have to bring in a lot of care and compassion, or you can help to kind of transition yourself into stillness by, saying, what do I need to help myself be more comfortable? Right? Do I need
When
to?
you say movement, are you
Yeah.
talking like Tai Chi or something, or just going for a walk, or what do you mean by that?
Yes to all. I think
Okay.
all of it is beautiful meditation and mindfulness practice, honestly. And so it's kind of whatever works for you. If you want to do, I just spoke with somebody who does Qigong. And
Okay.
I think that is a beautiful movement practice. But even just kind of doing what I call like sun breaths, you kind of breathe in, arms overhead, breathe
Oh,
out,
okay.
arms come down. Even just doing that maybe 3 to 5 times to help kind of really bring yourself into the space, set the expectation like I'm going to be in stillness, give yourself that transition time to kind of settle in. I think can be work wonders for people instead of like, okay, I'm meditating and now I can't move. Like that just doesn't work for most people.
No, I'm moving all the well, you see me now moving all over. I have a couple teaching videos on my YouTube channel, and there's two I share with people all the time. And one is how to create a love shield. And again, we're not really talking like empath type of energy things here tonight, but that's one of them, using the emotion of love, because again, our minds are so powerful. And then the other one is grounding and gritting, meaning I think the human beings are meant to live in balance. I really do, just like we have hot and cold, night and day. And when everything's in equilibrium and balance, right, we kind of get peace, if you will. So part of the grounding, I think it's a grounding and gritting one I did it a few years ago. I walked people through a guided meditation. And the one thing, and it's going to work for some people and some people it won't, but I walk them through, I think I use the going down the stairs. There's the meditation, or I mean, sorry, going down the elevator or the stairs, going down the stairs, walk them through. And I think this would work better for people. And I'm not saying everybody has to do this. There's going to be people it's going to work for that are more visual, maybe, or imaginative, but walking, and I help them sort of create a safe room, if you will, sort of talk them through how to design that room so that when they come back down there again, right, whether they want to add to the room or what. But again, it's not going to work for everybody, but some people may feel that they need something like that, right? That's why it's good to try a whole bunch of different types of techniques.
It's so interesting. That was actually a visualization very similar to that was my first introduction to any kind of guided
No
meditation.
way, really?
It was, and I was
Oh,
probably about 14 in my therapist's office, and she was leading me through a guided relaxation, and I honestly don't even remember what her cues were, but I can still see exactly where I was and how I felt. I don't know what
hmm.
she was cueing me to do, but I know exactly what I created in my mind, and it was a safe space. I was laying on the grass looking up at a forest. I can
Yeah.
see the whole thing, but that was my very first kind of introduction to this kind of practice.
Well, I created it with the intention because, well, I went through a bunch of self hypnosis things and stuff when I was a teenager. I had to have surgery and couldn't take a lot of pain medication.
Mm.
I had an allergy to most of them. So I
Oh,
worked with my pediatrician. He was a hypnosis therapist as well. So he was doing all kinds of stuff, like using my mind to help move biofeedback. Like I remember he had this game. Computers weren't even out. Like this was like in the early 80s, but he had some kind of stuff. I remember he put a band on my head and I had to focus to control this egg moving. Maybe that's like I
wow.
would pull out a pendulum. It's just a crystal, right? And I can hold it and I can move it with my mind. Like I'll tell people what I'm going to do. It's going to swing back and forth. Okay, now it's going to stop. Now it's going to turn, whatever, right? I just realized that's probably where it came from. but
Sounds like it.
but the focus, right? Like if you learn how to do it, and it was fun because I never knew what I was going to expect. So
Mhm.
he never did the guided room, but the whole thing was as I was focusing on this, and I thought it was created, if you will. I like that you use the word cues. It was created with that the next time you go to this space, it'll be quicker and easier to find this room and go in there. You can add to more to it, whatever you want. And, or like you said, you were laying on the grass. And again, it'll work for some people it won't. So
I love that though. But it's actually interesting too. You said, the more you go in there, the easier it is to
yeah,
go
that was
in.
what I was creating. I was hoping to create for people.
And the same is true for physical body positioning. And so in Mindfulness in Me, I actually go through some like meditation postures. And it's so funny you mentioned, I actually specifically recommend that people do not do lotus pose unless they're looking to
But
do it.
that's what you see, right? And it's
Because
like,
you will blow out both and or knees and hips, right?
right.
Like if you're not trained to do it, just stick with a regular seated position. You can do it on the floor, you can do it in a chair, but it is good to get into a consistent practice of sitting in the same position,
Mhm.
because when you can get your mind into a place of calm and stillness and just kind of like positivity, whatever that feels like, comfort, peace, right? Just whatever your needs, soothing, regulation in some way, the more you put yourself in that position while you're sitting, the
Mhm.
more likely you are to be able to invite that feeling into your body when you're feeling angry or frustrated or had a bad day, just by simply sitting in that posture where you've brought in those positive feelings so many times before.
Yeah, that makes total sense. We've got a lot of great comments here. Oh, somebody says they thought they heard a male voice. Interesting. They said, well, you might have. Wouldn't be the first time if an EVP came through. It wouldn't be. I don't know. Have you ever been? Well, you said this is one of your first really live. You've done recorded shows, right? This is the
Yeah,
first
I've
time
done
you've done
recorded, but
live.
this is my first live.
Yeah, if something weird's going to happen, it'll happen. It'll happen on my show.
You just go with the flow. We're just here for it.
We're just gonna go with the flow and whatever. And I always tell, even if we have people that are being naughty in the chat, I usually address them and say, that's not welcome here. You're welcome
Oh,
to say, but no, nobody's being that way. But I have over the years doing this,
yeah,
and
I'm
I don't
sure.
kick them out. I'll no, it's a good thing, because I'll just say, hey, that's not allowed here. But you
Right.
know what? We'd love to have you be part of the conversation. You're welcome to stay. Basically, if you're gonna behave yourself, kind of thing. And I mean
Right.
that to any male voices if we're hearing them.
But I
So
love Erica's comment here.
that's okay. Go ahead, read it. I was going to read it, but go ahead.
No, it just I don't think I can see the whole thing. I just
Okay,
see it
so
as a
Erica
person.
said, I'm good at visualization. I might have to unhide it here because it's a longer conversation. A comment, sorry. I'm good at visualization. I send my roots down through the floor, yet grounding all the different layers of soil until I get to the core of the earth. I wrap my roots around the core with my breath. I'm just going to highlight another comment so I can see the rest. So she wraps her roots all around the core, and with my breath, I breathe up the white or violet light back up through all the layers, up through the floor, and up into my body until it gets to my heart, where it shoots all through my body. We do something very similar, Erica, you and I. Mhm.
I actually was trained in guiding that as a visualization for people in a yoga and neuroscience for the treatment of trauma training that I attended.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Really?
that's an actual practice that they teach to people.
I never was taught that. Like, I walk people through, like with the love shield. There are people that feel like they can't go into my eldest son is one of those, into a crowded like shopping mall or something. He's very sensitive to what's around him. He'll start feeling kind of grumpy and whatever. So what I always tell people, it takes longer to listen to this video than it does to do. And the reason why is I don't want people watching the video and afterwards going, what did she say step 5 was again? Like, so I kind of walk people through how to create it. And I
Mhm.
use the emotion of love because I think that's one of our most powerful emotions we have. All of us know pretty well at some point in our life we have experienced loved or loved someone or something. And then I get them to kind of visualize it, going all through your body, wrapping all around and what have you. But I get you to create the shape. So, for example, my son with autism, he calls it the bubble. He'll say, Mom, I put the bubble up every night. He'll say that. And then my eldest never told me, but till he was older, and he always visualized angel wings for him. So you can create anything. I always tell people, if it's meant in love and it's meant for your highest good or other people, just like you kind of said with mindfulness, I feel the same thing. Because people say, well, can I do this? Can I do that? As long as you're not hurting anybody in
Right.
yourself, you go for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
So Michelle says, with breathing, I like to imagine breathing through the left nostril, then breathing out the right nostril, then reverse. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's a yogic practice. I don't know if you knew that that was a real practice. It's called Nadi Shodhana, and it's a practice for purification.
Oh, so Mark says, I'll listen to the replay. Go ahead. And Christina Lantis, she's here. I haven't seen you in a long time, girl. She says, spirit happens. It sure does. We've got some good comments. I know Mark was heading out. It's too bad, Mark. You've got some great comments here. We're just going to back up. So let me see. Where were we? Erica said, oh, let's see. She had a comment for you, Kira. She said, Kira, you said in the present moment you have more choices because you can think clearly. Well, what if we can't think clearly? My brain goes a million miles a minute and only shuts off when, hang on, I take time to specifically be mindful and not think. How do we think clearly so that we can make more choices in the moment or in the present? And that's a good question.
Yeah, no, that is a beautiful question because I think most people have that experience where when we're in the moment, our brain feels really chaotic. And I think about that a lot as white noise. We get all of this chatter, about what I need to do, all of these insecurities, all of these feelings, these histories, right? Like all of this stuff comes up and it makes it really difficult to see clearly. And so what this practice of mindfulness does is it can help to kind of clear that white noise that comes up that allows you to think clearly. So it's not necessarily that just being in the moment makes you think clearly, but it's kind of that both things, you have the invitation for both things to happen, even though sometimes you get one and not the other.
Okay, so, and I'm almost feeling like the more that you make a practice of this, the more your body, it'll be easier for you to call that clarity once you make it as a practice. Would that make sense?
Yes, exactly. And I don't believe that you ever get to a place where you're like this 100% of the time. I mean, I've been practicing for over 5 years, and I would say it's still less than half. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that we ever get to a place where it's like, oh, I can see everything clearly and nothing ever phases me and I never get upset. Like, I just don't think that's the reality of being inside of a human body.
Then you're not really
Like,
having an experience in life, are you? That we're meant to experience the experiences that we're here for, right?
So it's not that we don't have thoughts, not that we don't have emotions. It's simply that we can kind of see beyond them. We're not stuck in them.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get back to your book in a minute, but I wanted to ask you, I mentioned in your bio, and I know that Erica had said, I need you, Kira, about with the relationship things that you work with your counseling practice. So do you merge the practices we're talking about with relationship therapy as well, or is that something separate that you do as well?
No, I do merge them together, and actually that's what my research is on as well.
Oh, good. Let's talk about that. So your thesis? Or
Yeah.
dissertation, I guess. Same thing, right? But you're going for your doctorate, so
Yeah,
dissertation.
I think a thesis is for a master's degree, but
That's I
honestly,
just said dissertation.
not telling you.
I
Yeah,
just
so
said that
mine is
quietly,
a
I realized. Sorry.
But essentially what my research and my study is around is if a person's level of mindfulness is associated with the behaviors that they display during a conflict interaction, right? And so some types of behaviors would be like, compromising or domination, right? Am I trying to force you to do what I want you to do? Am I always letting you win? So is mindfulness kind of predictive of or kind of associated with the way that I'm engaging with my partner during conflict? That's essentially what my research was around. And spoiler alert, I have my my results, but it hasn't been published yet. There's a lot of factors that are involved. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one, like the more mindful you are, the better conflict you have, because it's just life is a lot more nuanced than that.
Right.
But essentially what we're seeing is that there are specific skills that you develop as part of a mindfulness practice that are really helpful in improving the quality of your conflict interactions, because every relationship has conflict. Yeah. No two people are going to be in agreement 100% of the time. That's just unrealistic.
It's not healthy. I can tell you my first marriage, I used to think I had the best marriage. We had one argument in 17 years of marriage. And what I learned afterwards was there was no communication. You just lived superficially, right? And you stayed away from the hard and difficult subjects because neither one of us liked confrontation. And that can create problems in itself.
Yeah. So avoidance is actually a conflict behavior or a style of conflict that people have, which is like, I don't want to fight, so I'm just not going to talk to you about it.
I'm not going to talk about it. Yeah.
Which
Mhm.
avoidance and separation can be really helpful as long as there is this expectation that we're going to come back together when we're both in a good space to
Mhm.
communicate about it and to resolve it and work through it. But exactly like what you said, conflict can be a really beautiful time for connection, for support, for showing up together, for proving that you and I are going to work through hard stuff. And
And
so,
you're gonna talk about it, but there's a way to do it, right? And most of us, and I've been guilty of it, I don't like to get angry, I don't like to lose my temper, but I've gotten much better about verbalizing with the relationship I am in now, but I'm not always mindful of what I say when I'm angry, right? And that can be very damaging because we can't take those things back that we say when we're angry either.
right. So the a couple of the skills of mindfulness that really come in here is one, this describing trait or skill of mindfulness. So part of becoming mindful is being able to put words to the experiences that we're having, right? So we're observing it, we're noticing it, we're also learning to put words to it, which is really, really helpful if I can explain to my partner, I'm feeling really insecure right now. That's so much more helpful than just saying, like, I'm really angry, like, I don't like this,
Mhm.
like, you can hear the difference,
Oh,
in just the way that I'm saying
absolutely.
that. So this describing piece is really helpful for helping people to not be so reactive during a conversation.
Mhm.
One of the other pieces that's really helpful is this non-judging element of mindfulness, which is just kind of saying, like, this is happening. I don't have to make up a story around it. I don't have to label it as good, bad, right, wrong. It simply is.
You're
So
identifying it.
exactly. Yeah.
Are
Um,
you using the craft method when you're dealing with those that are having issues with substance abuse? That's a community, oh God, what's the name of it? It was really interesting. Did quite a bit of research on this recently. Her name's Amber Hollingsworth, I think. She's got a channel on YouTube called Put the Shovel Down, which I thought was really crazy. The title, I thought, where would you come up with a title like that? Till she
yeah.
actually said it. And she said, "You get to decide when enough is enough. You don't have to
Mhm.
hit rock bottom. You decide when you're able to put the shovel down." But what I liked about it, and it's a different type of approach, kind of sounds like she's pulling a lot of mindfulness and things like that in it with communication, but supporting families to try and stay together if they decide, like the person that say isn't having the substance abuse problem is still wanting to stay, keep their family together, work together. Obviously their partner has to be willing eventually to get some treatment. But she said that the research that is showing that versus other methods, and she said, I'm not saying any method doesn't work, but she said, I think the research is showing it's got up to 63% success rate. She said she didn't learn about this in college. It's a newer method. Let me see
Yeah.
if I can look up have you heard of that before?
I haven't actually. I'm gonna write it down so that
I'm
I
gonna
can
write it. I'm
go
gonna
do my
so for people
research.
listening, if you get a chance, you guys check out her channel because she has so many free resources. And she supports you, like because what people don't realize when you're dealing with substance abuse and say you're the person that might be an enabler or a partner of somebody. I'm not calling a partner an enabler. I'm just saying she will address a lot of the different behaviors when it's time to leave, for example, or why certain things happen. She gets into trauma. Like this woman really gives a lot, really, and I'm really impressed with her. Just doing like I said, I've been around it professionally and personally my whole life, and I don't think there's any coincidences in life, but I found that right when I needed to find it, and I found her to be the most helpful out of most of the things that I've listened to. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I haven't heard that method specifically, but typically the way that I've kind of approached substance use treatment is to discuss the substance use as kind of a symptom of a larger or deeper issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The issue is not that you're using substances. The issue is that you're dealing with something that you feel like you need to use a substance to cope with whatever that is.
Well, and I always say too, like I said, nobody ever wakes up and says they want to be that. But
Right.
to me, somebody, whether they started it for whatever reason, they're
Mhm.
using it to numb or anesthetize some pain or some issues that need to be dealt with and need to be healed in some sort of way rather than utilizing substances to try and cope. Would I be right with that in what you've seen with the research?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
they've even done studies that people in substance use treatment, there's a 90 to 100% trauma rate.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's why I wanted to make it so, and I'm so glad that you said the research is catching up, that
Mhm.
some person from the outside looking in might went, You've got trauma over that."
Right.
Nobody has any job or any right to judge what somebody's trauma was. You didn't walk in their shoes or experience it.
And that's also kind of getting back to mindfulness, why I think this non-judging skill in mindfulness is so relevant when we talk about couples interactions, because it's not my job to say, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that, or you shouldn't be having that reaction. That's not helpful, right?
What I did want to ask you, and to put some of these comments up here, because
Mhm.
I knew people would find this really helpful, and I'm so grateful we're having this conversation. So thank you. I know you're going to help a lot of people, Kira. Is when you're looking at this with couples,
Mhm.
working with couples, do both partners have to be on the same page when we're working with mindfulness and this type of practice, or can just one partner partake, or what have you found with that?
Sure. So there was actually one research study that I read that looked at the couples mindfulness differently, and it was just couples. And I think it was even heterosexual couples. So as
Hmm.
far as diversity, it wasn't super diverse. But
Right.
what they found actually is that one person's mindfulness did affect the relationship functioning as a whole. So they did a lot along gender lines. So, for example, a woman with a higher mindfulness level
Mhm.
reduced the reactivity of their male partner, which I
That's
think is
yeah,
kind of
that's
a concern for a lot of women, especially, I'm reading here, Erica says her husband's a disabled vet, and that's really common in that community for veterans to come back and have just a lot of reactivity. And it can be really hard to manage that personally, to manage that in the relationship, to not get your feelings hurt over that. I mean, I can speak for myself. My husband is a Marine Corps vet. He was in combat 3 tours overseas, so I'm right there
oh,
with you, girl.
mhm. Oh, wow. Yeah, because that's what I'm so glad you guys are sharing your comments and experiences here. So, Erica's put a lot here. Thank you, Erica. She said, I truly thought I fully knew what real unconditional love was until they put my one and only child on my bare chest right after she was born. Talk about a love bomb. Yeah, that's kind of hard to explain, right? And I always say you're going to understand it when you have a helpless little being, whether you adopt them or however you come to be their parent. Yeah, there's a completely different kind of love there, that's for sure. So she also added, Erica, ouch, avoidance hit me hard.
Mm.
And Zach, and my heart goes out to all of you listening here. I really hear what you're saying, and can certainly empathize with you, because I do know Zach, and he just ended a 10-year relationship. There was an
Oh, that's so
engagement.
hard.
Yeah, and he says avoidance was a big factor in my past relationship.
So I
A lot
just
of people
kind
do
of
that.
throw in that not very many people know the origins of mindfulness and meditation, but really the purpose was that there was a group of people who wanted to help relieve suffering. And
Mhm,
that's where these practices came from. They came out of a desire to help people suffer less.
mhm. Wow, and how long ago did you notice that that came out? Like, was that like hundreds of years ago, or just in a century, or
What do you mean?
that, like, mindfulness, like you said, that's why it was sort of developed, was to help people
Oh,
suffer
no,
less?
it was between 2 and 3,000 years ago.
I figured. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, I'm thinking, yeah, it was from a long time ago.
Yeah.
But,
Mhm.
you
About
know
2,500 years ago, I believe.
mhm. And, it's almost like we get cyclical, and I don't mean, like, just in the last 10 or 20 years, but, like, look at how old this practice is. And it worked, right? So now
Mhm.
it sort of comes, and I hope that it stays with it because it's so powerful and so healing. And I'm really glad that you addressed, because I wanted to hit the head, or hit on a little thing that you said there when I asked if both partners had to be part of the mindfulness practice. And what I don't think, and believe it or not, I myself did not realize this, when one partner changes the way they communicate,
Mhm.
I get you absolutely what you're saying. When you change it, your partner kind of first steps back and goes, what's going on here? They may not say anything, but they're
Right.
expecting a certain reaction and certain words. And when you change the game, and you don't just do it once, and you're not being sneaky or tricky, you
Right.
want your communication, you want to fix this if you can. But what I'm saying is, once you start to take, I don't know, ownership, you want to be mindful, I'll put it that way. And then all of a sudden the person starts to let their guard down. Say you guys have a real conflict, or you don't have a lot of communication going on, and it's almost like a lock going into key, isn't it? Or key going into lock, isn't it? Right? It opens up things that you never would have thought were possible, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that as far as mindfulness goes, one of the key skills that we learn is self-monitoring, right? We learn to almost have like one eye always pointed inward to see, how am I feeling? Am I feeling activated by something? Am I feeling safe? Am I feeling able to connect? Or am I really feeling unsafe? Is my guard up? Am I feeling angry? You start to get kind of real-time information, whereas before you just look back in hindsight and you can kind of say to yourself, like, man, that thing that he said really made me angry, and that's where things went left. And so that's kind of where this power comes into, is instead of it being hindsight, which it will start in hindsight, right? It will. You
Mhm.
will not start out, oh, first time practicing and I had this, amazing experience and I was mindful the whole time. It's
Yeah.
just that's just not how it works.
Mhm.
Sorry to burst your bubble if that's what you were expecting. But you
Okay,
get
so
this power. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, I've got so many questions. So once you get to this state where you recognize, now I understand where the physical piece, I always did anyways, but for people listening, I hope this is coming together for them, where the physical piece comes in, why you started with your book of noticing what's going on with all your senses in the first part. Second part, we're starting to build a little bit of a toolbox here.
Mhm.
But when we get to the point where we're able to be mindful and notice, like, what's going on? What's going on in my body? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? So
Mhm.
did you say, like, say I'm starting to feel angry, or whatever that emotion or feeling or sensation may be?
Mhm.
What do people do with it now once we recognize it? Where do you go? Is that, I would imagine that's part of your book as well.
So what you do is you make a choice. And
Okay.
you make a choice whether you can stay in the situation and work through the feeling kind of in real time with whatever's going on, or if you need to take a step aside to have kind of a private moment to kind of manage and work through it without also having all of these external pressures at the same time.
I love the idea, but sometimes you don't have that availability.
Sometimes you don't. And
Mhm.
then you kind of manage it internally as
Okay.
best you can, right? Like, this is a real life practice. And so it's not always going to be the ideal
Yeah.
situation, right?
Mhm.
Ideally, you would be able to kind of check in. How is this feeling for me? How intense is it? Can I do this now? Do I need to kind of do this? If you're in a space where you can't really leave, maybe you're in a
Mhm. Oh,
classroom and you can't get
yeah.
up or whatever, you're at work, who knows? Um, you can kind of, this is really interesting though, as far as your brain and your nervous system goes, you have the ability to kind of put something on the back burner and say, hey, I know that I'm feeling this and I know that I don't have the availability to deal with this now. I'm going to deal with this later. So you can do that. If you do that too often and don't actually go back to it, you end up with the same problems that you had in your
You're
marriage.
reading my mind, because this is where we get into, and again, coming from the Western medical model and the whole bit, I do know that things that we do not deal with, things that we put up, I always call it my proverbial back shelf. I'll put it back there, but
I
I
call it my
know,
laundry pile.
but I know it's meant to be dealt with. I know it's going to resurface, but there
Yeah.
are things that we go through in life, and we don't, sometimes we even forget about them, putting them, back on the back burner, and they start to pile up. And like you said, then you're going to have the same problem over and over again. Or sometimes when you look at the root of some health issues, like, I'm going to tell you, I was one of those people. I've been more honest in the last couple of weeks. Not that I was going to lie to people, but it's just topics we're talking about on the show, that I was very, very ill at a young age, like almost died at 32, was in the hospital for 6 weeks, couldn't eat, was on end stage of life.
Oh my goodness.
The whole bit, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I started looking at natural healing, because Western medicine wasn't working for myself. And I'm not telling everybody to go out and do what I did. I'm just sharing my experience. And what I realized was, from working with this naturopathic doctor, because she kept saying, "Oh yeah, this should work. Like, yep, you're gung ho. You want to do all this stuff. You've been very compliant." And when she realized it wasn't working, there was an emotional component from my childhood that I hadn't dealt with. And again, I'm not going to a victim place here. I'm sharing this because when I unraveled that and I dealt with it, that I didn't even know I was carrying.
Sure.
I'm healthier now at almost 58 than I was in my late 20s and early 30s. So I know that sometimes that can happen as well, right? If we don't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Including even sickness with you. Like, it's something to look at anyways. It can't hurt is what I'm saying. You're not taking any pills. You're not taking, you know what I mean?
Right.
You're looking at hopefully making the situation better. And that's why I really loved that you've put a book out like this, like a working piece, like you said. So we're in the second part, like we went through the second part now.
Mm-hmm.
What's the third part of the book? Like what, week 3?
So week 3 is body-based practices, which can be really difficult for people. And so I even put kind of a caution in the first part that if you're a person who's experienced body-based trauma, if this is going to be difficult for you, you're welcome to make the choice to skip it, or you can kind of try them out and just know that you may need to kind of pull out early or whatever. But we go through, we do some body scans, progressive muscle relaxations, just different stuff to start to get back in your body and kind of befriend your body a little bit. One of my favorite practices from this week is the underappreciated body part. And so it's essentially extending an invitation to pay attention to a part of the body that does something really wonderful to you that doesn't get a whole lot of gratitude.
I
And
love it.
so for me, this is often my feet because they carry me around all the time. Like they're
Mhm.
literally this big, and yet I somehow like balance all 5'7" of me without falling over. And so it's
Right.
just a nice time to kind of sit with a body part and have some gratitude and just kind of bring in some positive feelings for your body. When most people, I mean, I don't know if you can relate, but most people don't pay attention to their body unless it's causing them pain or a
I
problem
was
in
just
some way.
thinking that you don't realize, like, for
Right.
example, it doesn't matter what it is. Say somebody's broken. Guess hello. My dog's always got to come say hello. I'm sorry. She thinks she's a lap dog. Okay, down you go. Sorry.
Okay, mine are mad. I locked them out of the room.
Did you? She always comes to say hi. Lots of times my cat will be in the background. One night she was sitting as my co-host.
I love it.
So yeah, you know what? We're real people. We're doing a real show here. That's what it is, right? But I agree with you. You were just reading my mind, actually. I was thinking because nobody ever realizes how important parts of their body are until they've
Mhm.
injured it, or God forbid, you've lost it. Bye,
Yeah.
Mark. Thanks for your great insight. I really appreciate it. He says, "Gotta run." Thanks so much for this. We
Thank you for
appreciate you.
coming. You had some wonderful comments.
Absolutely. But where I was going, like I said, to repeat it, you don't realize what your body does for you until either you are ill or you've hurt or injured or, God forbid, are missing that part of your body. And then you realize.
Mhm. And I even say that at the very beginning of Mindfulness in Me because that's really kind of the foundation for this whole book is that so often the way that our brain is wired, it only pays attention to problems or challenges. And so part of a mindfulness practice is letting yourself notice and enjoy all of the wonderful things in your life before it becomes a painful lesson.
Ooh, I like that. I really like that. And people, I want to read. Oh, God, I've got a moth in here. I do want to read Christina. They were chatting a bit in the comments here. She said, Mark, who's got to head out, she said, a lot of people are supporting him, and I appreciate this. She said she had lost her dad to suicide as a senior in high school. Grief comes in waves, and it helps to talk about this stuff. It absolutely does. And we send out to anybody who's listening, our deepest condolences, our empathy, our love. And we thank you for those that were able to share their comments, like Mark here and everybody else. So thank you.
There's a beautiful level of compassion and community here.
You know what? We have the greatest, like I said, oh, I forgot to tell people. I'm supposed to do it at the beginning of the hour. Sorry. You guys, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, and this is my amazing guest, Kier Markoff. And we have a whole bunch of new hosts and new shows. There is something for everybody on this network. So if you guys like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends and family. But I will tell you, the Angel Rock family, it is a beautiful family that is here. I don't think Mark's ever been here. He just sent me a friend request. I think he saw me on, I was on 2 different podcasts this weekend as a guest, but it grows and we have beautiful, loving people in these comments. We really, really do. And I appreciate them so much. Really sweet people. So but
that was very heartfelt. Like I felt it right here.
did you? Well, I do, because a lot of people think when you podcast, like you make all this money and whatever,
Right.
and you don't realize it costs money to run a network or whatever. If you're doing it on your own with Anchor or whatever, right? That's okay. Nothing wrong with it. I tell people now's the time to get into podcasting. You got something to say, share it with the world. Let people hear your voice and your ideas and your creativeness. But you know what? The spaces, you've got to pay for the spaces when you're on a bigger network and stuff. So I always say that people that are doing this, we're doing it because we love it. And we feel like we've got something, hopefully we can share that, people resonate with. So Erica says, she's talking about, I don't know which, I got to go back here. I don't know what she was talking about because she's getting into an essential oil. Oh, wait, I'm meet with an amazing circle every other week. Before we start, each person picks up a rock from the ground. We basically channel any worries or concerns into the rock. There's 2 bowls set up. One has, hang on, I got to scroll down here, guys, water in it. The other, okay, one has water and the other has water, a few drops of frankincense oil, and a few other things in it. If it's a concern we simply want to put on hold, not think of it during our time together, we put the stone into the bowl of water to hold. If it stays wet, wait, okay.
Something we'd like to release or let go of
You're
permanently.
so awesome. Thank you. Like to release, we let go of permanently. We drop it into the other bowl with oils and herbs. At the end, if it was a concern, issue, problem, we put, hang on, guys, I'm scrolling. I don't know if she's still typing. Hang on. Oh, we put on hold. We simply go pick up the rock when we're done. If it was something we just wanted to be done with, we leave the stone. Ooh, I like that. Have you heard of that practice before?
No, I've heard of similar ones, but never that exact practice, which I love.
Yeah, because it's a visual, right? I don't know about you, but I find a lot of people are visual learners. They may not necessarily be good at, picturing it in their mind or something, but most people I find tend to learn, or I don't know. I would just find that most people really learn better when you show them or they're able to see it, which
Yeah. And well, that's part of why I included the pebble meditation as some of the practices. So week 4 is working with emotions. Actually, I'm skipping ahead to week 6, but it's a good time to talk about it anyways.
Okay.
So there's this thing, it's called a pebble meditation, and it has 4 parts. And so you do just what Erica was talking about. You pick up pebbles from the ground, and you choose one to represent a flower, one to represent water, one represents a mountain, and one represents space. So you can kind of forage for pebbles that you feel like represent that, or you just pick up the first 4 you see. It doesn't really matter. And then you set them aside, and kind of in turn, you pick up your flower pebble first, and you say to yourself, breathing in, I see myself as a flower, and breathing out, I feel fresh. And you repeat that 3 times to yourself. And then the other 3 kind of have similar ones, but it's this idea of, bringing in a visualization with a breath practice, having something concrete to hold. It's really beautiful.
I haven't heard of that before, but I could see that being really effective.
I love it. I honestly practice it all the time. It's one of my favorites.
I just love it. So like you said, the one thing I wanted to go back to, like you said about the body, right? It's like, so you're going to appreciate, like you said, parts that we don't necessarily give gratitude to, like you said, your feet, and you're right, we don't think about those things. So what else is involved with like there's a little bit more than just, I would imagine, just appreciating the body, right? Because I'm curious about this because I don't think I've quite heard it related that way. So I'd love to hear more about it's chapter 3, right?
Yeah. So let me, if you want, I can kind of go through because each of the weeks has 7 practices. So I can just kind of tell you what each of the 7 is
Yeah,
if
because I'm really curious about that. Like, I love what you said about appreciating a part of your body that you may
Mhm.
not have thought of, but is just with the physical. Like, I can't think of anything else right now. And I thought, oh, let's hear what you've done. I'm excited to hear this.
Sure. So the first practice in the week is a body scan, which is I have a whole list of body parts. And so you just check in with each one briefly and you just kind
Okay.
of move systematically from part to part, just kind of checking in and noticing, right? That's all it is. It's a simple noticing.
So no
And then,
rumination, just noticing
yep.
my index finger or my baby finger on my left hand hurts. Check, kind of move along, right?
Well, you don't even have to put like, oh, it hurts or it feels X, Y. Like it literally is so quick. Like it would be, bottom of the left foot, top of the left foot, left heel, left ankle, just bringing momentary awareness to those places.
Yeah, so then not even noticing what's going on, you're just noticing the body part. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you can notice whatever's there. You're not telling yourself I have to notice or not notice anything, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
And then, so the second one is a progressive muscle relaxation, where
I like
again, you move systematically through the body, tensing and releasing muscles with breath.
Mhm.
So it's breathe in, tense, breathe out, unclench, whatever that muscle group is. And I love that one because we hold tension in our bodies without even
Oh,
noticing.
do we ever? I never realized
Yeah.
this until I've done this, and then it's like, holy crap, I was, like, clenching my shoulders and my neck and my teeth and had
Mhm.
no idea. Mhm.
And so the beauty of this is that when you tense and release, you release whatever you just tensed. You also invite to release whatever was already kind of held there just through stress or trauma.
Okay.
And for people who are interested, I have both of these as guided meditations on my YouTube for free if you'd like to listen to them.
I was gonna mention that at some point. Holy
Yeah.
cow, I won't say crap, holy cow. You have so much in the way of free. I checked out your website. You guys, you gotta check out our website. We'll make sure to mention it at the end. It's in the write-up for the show, but you will not believe the things that, and thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. It's so funny. I do not, like you said, I'm not really in this for the money. So if I could make all my content free, I would, but my husband would have something to say about that. So
Yeah, yeah, we still got it.
like
Yeah,
I keep giving away
hey,
books to
it's
people, and
money,
he's like, "You have to stop doing that."
well, no, money is the energy. Like the same thing, I do charge for some readings that I do. There's other things I do for free. And, you'll have people that'll get very self-righteous and say, well, I don't charge for it. Well, that's okay. That's your journey and that's your path. Well, it
Yeah,
comes from God. You shouldn't be charging for things from God. I know, isn't that cool? Everything comes if that's your belief. But you know what? I'd love to go in a grocery store and say, oh,
right.
these vegetables and fruits come from
Yeah,
wherever I got myself, but that's not the way it works.
right. That's not
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
But anyways, so another body-based practice I have is mindful hand washing, where it's something that you do every
Oh,
day, multiple times a day. So you're giving yourself this invitation to do something you always do in a new way that brings you some joy, peace, comfort, whatever it is you're looking for.
I wonder if we started to do that a bit over the last 3 years, right? Well, I don't know if you paid attention so much, but you really had to wash your hands, right? You started to, well, maybe after a while you didn't, but I'm sure people started to pay a little bit of attention versus what they would normally do.
Right. Yeah, you would hope.
Mhm.
But so often these times, washing your hands, taking a shower, brushing your teeth are times for people to just kind of let their thoughts run wild,
Yeah.
instead of really being present in the moment and enjoying the experience.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what that mindfulness practice is just an invitation to be in the things that you do every day.
Mhm.
Another practice from that week is neck rolls. And so people get a lot of stress and tension,
Yeah.
and some people really enjoy kind of doing the full, like all the way around
Mhm.
neck roll, which actually I've heard most chiropractors are no longer recommending that people do. They're recommending that people just do kind of ear to ear down, but not go all the way back. So, fun fact for anyone who loves that. But that is a practice of letting your body be the guide, because so often we go into that and we're like, oh, I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm going to really push myself or really feel this stretch. And so this practice is really about saying, like, what does my body want? Like, where feels particularly good? Can I pause in any particular angles that feel wonderful to me? So that's what that's about.
Love
And
it.
then we go into the underappreciated body part. And then day 6 is about loving touch. So I guide a short hand self massage, which I really love. If you've never done self massage before, it can be such a beautiful way to connect with your body. And I love talking like love languages because we all give and receive love in different ways. So if
Right.
touch is a love language for you, hand massage can be a beautiful, beautiful practice. And then the last practice for the week of body based practices is hearing your heartbeat. And it's just tuning into wherever you can sense your heartbeat, if that's, feeling your chest or fingertips or, in your neck, whatever.
I love it. I love it. That's so cool. I really love it because I think that's a pretty comprehensive list, and some of the things I hadn't heard of. That's why I think I'm not putting you on the spot here. I want to hear these things because I
No,
think
yeah.
they're so cool. So you said you were going to skip ahead because number 4 is emotions, you said?
Yeah, 4 is working with emotions. Week 5 is traditional mini meditations, but week 6 is breath plus, where I get into actually the sun breaths is in there where you kind of lift your hands overhead and then kind of bring them down. So it's about breath plus words. So kind of using
Okay.
words, using movements, affirmations, visualizations. So it's kind of all of the different things we can layer on with breath.
Okay.
So that's
I
why
love
I jumped ahead because that's where the pebble meditation is.
Okay. What about emotions, though? That's got to be a big one, isn't it?
It is. And I know we talked about anger. So I want to share one of the practices is Thich Nhat Hanh's anger mantra. Have you heard of it?
No, but I'm going to tell you right now, I know I have a lot of repressed anger. Like I mentioned earlier, I do not like to get angry. I'm not a
Yeah.
control freak, but I do not like to be very angry because I feel you feel out of control when if you're really going to unleash it. So I don't like to go there. So I'm really interested in this part.
Yeah. So I really love this mantra for myself. I use it a lot. My clients really love it. So if you don't mind, I'll kind of lead through one round of the
You
mantra.
go for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
So it starts breathing in. I know that anger is here. Breathing out. I know that anger is not me. Breathing in. I know that anger is unpleasant. Breathing out. I know this feeling will pass. Breathing in. I am calm. Breathing out. I am strong enough to take care of this anger.
I love it because a lot of people don't realize that like, especially if you're someone like myself, I don't like to get angry, and I know why, but that would be really helpful, right? To give yourself permission that it's okay to be angry and
Mhm.
processing it in a way, right?
Right. Acknowledging that it's here, that it's unpleasant, I don't like it,
Hmm.
and I'm strong enough to sit and breathe and let my anger come and go.
Hmm. You know
Yeah.
what I usually do if I'm angry or I'm irritated, and I found it really helps me, is to go outside. Just
Mm,
sit outside and breathe outside. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's the fresh air. I don't know what it is, change of venue, but it
yeah.
really helps. Hmm.
There is just something about nature.
Hmm.
It's just when you feel so disconnected from everything else, there's so much in nature that just screams connection.
Hmm. My dog decided to open my notifications on my phone. Sorry, or my computer. Well, Erica says she loves, loves, loves rage rituals. It's her new most favorite tool. So, do you cover anything like that in the book, or?
No, rage rituals is not something that I cover
Yeah,
or
I've never heard of it
particularly
before.
familiar with, to be honest.
No, Erica says you got to let me lead you through a rage ritual. I I guess so. I guess, I mean, I can't say no to it. Maybe you gotta make a video on that, Erica, and put it out there because I haven't heard that terminology before.
It
And like you s
reminds me of something that I talk about with my clients. We talk about primal screaming.
Oh, there you go.
And when I
Yeah,
hear rage
yeah.
ritual, that's just what I think of is like primal screaming.
Mhm. Well, I'll do that with, like I said, my he's 25 and he's really no problem now, and now as he's gotten a bit older, he can process it. But he's sometimes when he's at a 5 and he can tell you, he'll want to still hit or he'll still want to whatever, and he's developing some self-control, but I'll tell him, you want to hit something, here you go, dude, here's a whole pillow, go for it. Or you want to yell, you yell your head off if you want that pillow.
Mhm.
That's not quite what you were talking about, but I mean, it helps release it, right? Because it's energy, it's a buildup. And the one thing I've always learned about anger is. It's not well, no emotion is necessarily a bad thing, but anger especially is almost like that trigger point between some of the lower, we would call vibrational emotions, and higher vibrational. It's almost like that bridge point, right? Because it's quick, it's fast. If you experience and sort of ride the wave, and I love what you just shared, and then you've got a choice, right? You can either move upwards, you can move downwards.
Right.
It's just got more movement to it when I look at it from an energy perspective.
I always think about anger kind of as a protector, because
Ooh, I like that idea.
anger is a masking emotion. And what I mean by that is there's always, and I truly do believe always, something underneath, whether
Absolutely.
it's hurt or grief or pain, betrayal, jealousy, insecurity, hunger,
Resentment.
resentment.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
know, there's anger never exists on its own. And so it almost is, you know, anger is a way to protect myself from something that really hurts to feel.
I agree. I never thought of it that way, but you are so right. You are. There's always an maybe that's where what I was trying to say, that you have the choice to where you're going to go with it after
Mhm.
you've expressed it, or like I said, rode the wave. And
Yeah.
you are so right. It's like it's a cover up, isn't it?
And so I found that it's really helpful for people with anger to kind of remind myself of that and kind of peel back that anger layer to ask,
Mhm.
like, what's really underneath.
I think that is so helpful. What's underneath? Because there is, some people might call it a trigger or whatever it is that makes somebody angry. It
Mhm.
isn't really a trigger, it's an emotion that we either didn't express, didn't feel comfortable expressing it, or whatever it may be. Yeah. So if you can peel it back and really look at what's the issue.
Yeah. Because I
Hmm.
really am a big believer in let's treat the real issue and not the symptoms. I do that with anger, with substance use, with everything. You kind of part of healing work for me and what I do with my clients is, peeling back those onion layers.
Hmm. No, but I think you're right about that. And it gets back to something you said earlier. If you don't get to the root of the problem, and peel back those layers, all you're doing is putting a band-aid on it, and it's going to keep reappearing and
Yep.
reappearing once the band-aid falls off or whatever it
Mhm.
is. You have to get to the root of the problem.
Yeah. But I
Hmm.
think we get so uncomfortable with those outside layers that we just
Hmm.
push them away and we don't let ourselves sit with them long enough to really see or feel what's underneath.
I hear you exactly and could not agree more.
And part
Oh,
of a mindfulness practice is learning to sit with that, giving you tools to breathe through it, sit with it, see underneath.
I'm so glad. Like, I know I always trust in the process of the show, but it's becoming so clear to me now how the two of them go together with the book that you've written. And I love that you've broken it down into pieces and looking at it, giving you, like you said, the tools. It all really does fit hand in hand together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really
Hmm.
does. And, you know, I think that you'll resonate with this, but I honestly did not, this was not my idea. I felt really like a conduit. Something was like coming through me that needed to be shared. And it was so funny. I remember I wrote the introduction actually after I had written the rest of the book. And I read over it and I just started crying. And it felt like the words were meant for me.
Oh, wow. But
It was
maybe they
such a
were.
I think they really were. And I even said, I was like, if nobody gets anything from this book, it was healing for me to write.
I have 3 books I'm working on right now, and they're all interconnected. The subjects don't interrelate, but if we think about it, not everybody, but a lot of people that write a book, it was their therapy and it was what they needed to say. It was a book they couldn't find that needed to
Mhm.
be written. Or as I always say when I'm connecting with spirit, especially like doing Reiki or something, I'm not healing somebody. I'm just the conduit, like you said, or I call myself the mail person. You know what? It's just coming through me. You're just
Yeah.
the channel, if you will. But I have found a lot of people that have written really powerful, incredible books. It's the book they were looking for, either while they were experiencing something or going through it. And I think those are the most powerful books because they come from the heart.
And it's so funny that you say that. I did a Q&A with Maddie Greenfield from my publishing company. And one of the questions he asked me was advice that I would give to my teenage self.
Oh,
And
I think that's a really good, sorry, I didn't mean to stop you, but I think that's
no,
powerful. Mhm.
yeah, it really was because I suffered a lot as a teenager. You know, I went through hard times, um,
I'm
and
sorry.
I really do think, believe, truly wholeheartedly believe that you don't have to wait for someone or something to come and save you, that you have the power within yourself to be exactly who you need for comfort and for peace and for soothing.
No one knows you better. And it's the same thing I tell people that, and it's not in a place of judgment, but when people will, I'll get asked this too, what does my dream mean, for example, or whatever. And I always tell people, believe it or not, the only person that knows what that dream means is you. So it's learning to trust yourself and
Mhm.
find out. Maybe you don't know right away.
Yeah.
Some of the things I'll suggest to people, keep little paper and pen by your bedside before your feet hit the floor. Jot a few words down. You don't have to write an essay, okay? And when you start going through it, you start going back through it because you're the one living your life. You're the one experiencing it. And the other thing I always, always, always say, doesn't matter what is going on in the world, the only person that's going to save us is ourselves, right? We need to recognize that we have that power within,
Mhm.
not from an egotistical sense, but from the perspective of, there's a saying I've read that I love, and it says you never know how strong you can be until strength is the only thing you need. But it's true, right? We've never been taught from infancy that believe in yourself, you have everything you need. You know, all the things that would empower us, teaching meditation from infancy, mindfulness, all of these things. Imagine what a different world we'd live in.
Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
So the advice you give, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, you said the advice. Are you comfortable sharing what he had asked? Like you said, or was that basically like you said, you realized that you like you
Yeah,
what
that was the advice that I gave to myself is you don't need somebody to swoop in and fix everything for you. You can do it.
I agree. I could not agree more. So I was reading Sandra's comment because she said above the one I just highlighted, thank you for saying that about anger. That's a perfect way of looking at it. And Michelle thanked us for what we were doing above earlier. I didn't get a chance to say, so thank you, Michelle, for always being here. And she was referring to both of us for this. And so did Erica, I think, as well. And then Sandra said, with hypnosis and Reiki, I refer to myself as a
Mm.
facilitator. The healing is their own. That's so beautifully said. Absolutely.
People laugh at me when I talk about my role as a therapist because people come to therapy often like looking for you to fix it or looking for advice or what should I do in this situation? I do not give advice. I'm a
Mhm.
therapist and I do not give advice as a practice. I don't consider myself arrogant enough to know what you need better than you do, and I don't want to be held responsible for the outcome.
No, it's the same as me. People come first make a reading and they want to know the future. And I always say to them, this is going to sound really complicated, but you know what? We got free will. And then if you want to really get into timelines and all kinds of things, I might see something the way it's supposed to happen tomorrow. But you get up late tomorrow, you don't do your usual routine, your car doesn't start, you have to take a cab, whatever, you're going to go a different path to work. That's kind of how life is. You
Yeah.
are the master of your own destiny. You get to make those choices.
Hmm.
Plus, I always think if somebody's asking me a question like, am I going to move soon? You're looking to move. So it's up to you. Are you going to make it
Right.
happen or are you not? Mhm.
But it's funny. I call myself a Sherpa because the people on Mount Everest who like help climbers go up and down because
Yeah.
I have a certain level of expertise about neuroscience and the
Yeah.
nervous system and the way that brains work and mental health in general and symptoms. Like I went to school, I have that knowledge. I've been working in the field for several years.
Mhm.
However, you got to tell me where you want to go and we will walk that
Yeah.
together because I'm not just going to pick you up and carry you.
It, and you're going to give people maybe some tools or some things or
Right.
maybe a different perspective how to look at whatever that may be, right?
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times, yeah, that's what I end up doing with people too, right? Talking to them about these types of things. But I'm not going to tell you what to do either,
Right.
right? You are the only one that knows you best. And there'll be people saying, I don't know myself. You do know yourself. And I've been guilty of this myself, saying, well, I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. It's just we may not want to make the choice. That's the
Yeah.
one that we need to make, right? But it's almost like you like empowering people is what you're doing. You're giving them the tools, you're giving them what they need to maybe look at it from a different perspective than the way they looked at it before, to create the life and the dreams that they've always wanted to achieve, right?
And I think another major barrier for people is that
Fear.
we have
Thank
more
you.
than one internal voice,
Mhm.
and
Oh, yeah.
we don't trust ourselves to tune in with intuition or higher self. And
Mhm,
so we have, whatever you call it, the inner heckler, ego, fear, whatever you want to call that voice in there that stirs everything up and makes it feel scary and awful.
mhm,
Sometimes it's hard to tell, am I listening to inner self or am I listening to ego, fear, whoever?
mhm.
And I think that's challenging for a lot of people.
Oh, you're darn right, it's challenging. Plus, when you've got I like that you said the inner heckler. I hadn't heard that one, but it's so true, right? Whatever made you think you could do that? Whatever made you think that you were, we've like I said, some of the things that we say to ourselves, like I can remember, for example, I do producing all the time. One person, we got a new show on there. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And I was beating myself up, and I heard that inner voice say, give yourself grace, right? You try yourself, you tried the best that you could. You can't change the outcome. You just got to go with the flow, right? I apologize. They knew it was sincere. I didn't do it on purpose. It was beyond my control. It was a technical thing, but
Yeah.
right, but we beat ourselves up. And that's why I think it's important for people to hear, like, you writing a book like this and sharing this. And I loved your honesty about how often it might actually work or you'll be able to do it, because we all tend to put people on pedestals. And what people don't realize is, and none of us do till you get in a room full of people and you talk to them, it
Right.
doesn't matter, say, if somebody is a movie star or a billionaire or living on the street. We all have different degrees of this, of common problems, but
Mhm.
even common ways of looking at things or experiencing things. But we think we're the only one too, right? We don't realize that it may not be the same problem, but we're feeling the same types of feelings or hearing the same type of inner heckler or whatever that may be,
Mhm.
right?
And I'll tell you, it can't have been more than 6 months ago. I had a panic attack.
Oh,
And
that's
I
so
it
scary.
was it was such an it wasn't though. That's what was
Because
interesting.
you had the tools.
Is I've had panic attacks before and they were horribly scary and awful and I hated them. And this time, I literally was inside of my body, kind of watching what was happening to my body and saying, this is an interesting reaction." Like I was curious about it and I was like, "Wow, look at the reaction that my body's having right now. How interesting." And I just kind of like sat and watched, and then the panic attack was over and I was fine.
Wow, how powerful is that? And good for you. Because to be able to almost, I kept hearing out of body experience, almost like sitting outside watching it happen, going, "This is
Yeah.
interesting." Mhm.
It was, and it was so and I knew exactly why it was happening, like, I had built all of the insight, like, I knew and I honestly, I felt it building before it actually kind of happened and
Ah,
turned into a
okay.
panic attack,
Mhm.
and so I kept honestly, I expected myself to be able to not have a panic attack. I was like, "Oh, I can handle this, like, I'll be fine," and then I did have a panic attack, and I was like, "Oh, how interesting."
I think that's so cool. We are almost out of time. See how fast this goes by when we start talking
Oh
about
my
stuff?
gosh, no way.
Everybody says the same thing. Sometimes I'll have someone on my show and I'll be, but no, I think 2 hours is going to be too long. And I always say, well, why don't we just give it just a little bit of time and see? Because we're talking about something that's important and it's your passion, right? And I knew I'm passionate about this topic as well. So I knew we were good. Look at all the people with the comments. I knew they were
I
going to
know,
find
I
this so
love it.
interesting.
This is
Well,
fantastic.
you're going to have to come back again. That's all. But
No.
we didn't get through all the chapters. So is there anything else you want to add before we kind of wind up a little bit with the
Oh, I
book?
will just add, so we went through week 6, breathing plus, and then week 7 is a chakras chapter. So there are 7
Ooh.
chakras. Each day is a different one. What's
Mhm.
interesting is that if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of
I
needs,
certainly am. Mhm.
a 1960s-ish psychologist, we all have basic needs until you fulfill the lower level, you can't move up. Almost a one-to-one alignment with the chakras.
I've never seen it that way. I am going to have to check that out. We do have a question for you quickly. So Erica says, when my daughter has a panic attack, I ask her these questions. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you smell? What taste is in your mouth, etc., etc. Is there anything you would add to that at all, Kira? Or are you? is that an effective strategy you found for some people as well? Obviously it works for her daughter, but
Yeah, so a lot of people do that. It's they call it the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding method, and a lot of people do it. It works for a lot of people. I really like to add, what do you hear that helps you feel safe and comfortable? You know, kind of add that last little bit that just says, instead of just looking for random stuff, what is available to me right now that's helping me to feel safe and comfortable? And it doesn't have to be any specific number. So some people get really tied to like 5 things you can see. I find that kind of unnecessary.
Mhm.
But I do like to add that kind of safe and comfortable piece
Oh,
because
I
it
love
speaks to a different part of our nervous system.
it. I love it. So we were at week 7. I love the chakras. You are going to have to come back. We're going to have to talk all about that because that's what Crystal Reiki is, dealing with the chakras, believe it or not. People don't know. I need to make a video. I keep saying to show people what it's all about. Okay, so I
Yeah.
love that. And now I got to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs again. And you, now that I think about it, you are absolutely right because what each chakra represents.
Yeah. Yeah. So honestly, that's what I love about mindfulness in me, is that it comes from all of my different backgrounds: mental health, psychology, traditional yoga, and meditation. And it's just an integration and how everybody's really saying the same thing. And what I love to tell people is that I did 3 years of research to find out that it all boils down to a meme. Keep kind and be kind to, or keep calm and be kind to yourself and others.
I love it. Love it. Chapter 8 quickly, and then we got to sign off here pretty soon. Erica says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And she loves what you just shared
Oh,
about
thank
with your
you.
daughter. Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So week 8 is just about creating connections. So it's the internal smile to myself, love is all you need, mantra meditation, intention setting, making lotus flower hands. So just really all about connecting with self, others, nature.
What a beautiful book. So let's talk about, before we start, well, I'll wrap things up as I usually do, but where can they find you? Where can they connect? All your free resources. Where can they get this beautiful book? And I'm going to have Kira back on because I'm telling you, I want to dive into the chakra stuff and Maslow's hierarchy of need. Yeah,
Well, I wouldn't
Michelle's
be doing
asking.
my job if I didn't leave you wanting more, right?
Yeah, she goes, what's lotus flower hands? She's
Oh,
asking,
real
can you?
quick. So it's just this position. So you put your thumbs and your pinkies together and the heels of your hand together, and then the other fingers are splayed out. So it looks like a lotus flower, and you just hold it in front of your heart.
Love
That's
it.
all it is.
Love it. Jason Dragon says, great live, blessed be all, and right back at you. So where can they find all this stuff with
Yeah.
you, Kira?
So if you go to my YouTube channel, it's Connections Mind Body Wellness on YouTube. You can find a bunch of free videos there, guided meditations that we talked about. And then also my website is connectionsmindbody.com. You can find me there. You can I can ship you a signed copy of my book if you're into that. You can also just find it on YouTube, Barnes and Noble, etc., wherever books are sold.
Thank you so much for being here. I so enjoyed talking to you. I know our audience did because we've had a ton of comments and questions, and I appreciate everybody sharing everything they did here. We really do, because there'll be people listening and watching on the replay, and I know they're going to appreciate what everybody shared. So thank you, Kira, so much.
Well, I had a
Um,
wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you for inviting me into
well,
your
like I said, I got
community.
to have you back because now I should have asked you what if I'd known what's week 7. And it's like, oh God, we got to talk about that. So we'll have to say that for next
Well,
time.
I'll see you all again soon then.
So if you guys ever want to get a hold of me, whether you've got a guest idea, show suggestion, maybe you want to book a reading or healing sessions, I do mentoring as well. You can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. And you guys know I have 2 groups on Facebook: Paranormal University for all the spooky ooky things. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things we talked about tonight and more. Please stay tuned next Thursday. I'm thinking about next Monday already. I told you my mouth is not working tonight. On Thursday, I should say, David and I are going to be back with the thing at the foot of the bed, 7 p.m. to Eastern Standard Time. You know we're going to have a great topic. We love to have you guys part of the conversation. We have such a good time with you, so we'll see you then. Please stay tuned. Okay, for the show coming up next, they're good friends of ours here on the Angel Rock. It's Julia and Phil Syracusa with the Horsefly Chronicles. I want to thank you again, Kira, so much. And we'll see you guys all hopefully Thursday. Next week, I will warn you, I don't know if I have a guest. The person I had booked for a couple months is had something come up. So you may just have me. And you know how much fun we have when we just do a show together. We go all over the place. So we'll see. It'll be a surprise next week. So we'll see you all next week, guys. Love you. Okay. See you on Thursday too. Thanks again.